In this video I am talking about this giant Sigma 35mm f1.2 DG-DN art lens. If you are new here, my name is Pav, and on this channel I talk about photography and video related gear. If this is your thing, then please consider subscribing. It's not a secret that Sigma is delivering very high quality lenses. It's not a secret that most of them are big and heavy. It's also not a secret that this 35mm f1.2 lens is their flagship in art series. This is really an outstanding piece of glass with pretty much no competition at this focal length and with this fast aperture. But is it really worth investing in? Before I answer that question, I must say massive thanks to Sigma UK for lending me this lens for this review. However, I wasn't asked or paid to say anything specific, so this is my honest and totally unbiased opinion about this lens. You might have heard term fast prime. That usually refers to affordable lens with aperture or f2 or maybe f1.8. Then you have the premium fast primes with aperture of f1.4. These are usually higher quality and more expensive than those f1.8 lenses and associated more with professional lenses. And then you have f1.2 lenses like this one, rare and super expensive most of the time. Anyway, there's few available now, but most of them are manual focus or a low-end budget options like the 50mm f1.2 lens from Samyang and Rockingham. This is something else. This is a lens that sits right on top of the Sigma art lens pyramid, and oh boy, it really delivers the goods. So let's talk about the performance first. No surprise that this lens is sharp, and I mean super sharp. The autofocusing is quick, snappy and very accurate, and the real world photos are razor sharp edge to edge at f4, but why would you want to shoot with it at f4 when you can go all the way up to f1.2? At f1.2 the focusing is still spot on, but the depth of field is so shallow that it is very hard to get what you want in focus. For example, to photograph a person, you focus on the eyes, obviously, and all you get sharp is the eyes. Really nice look when everything is out of focus apart from the eyes. Even the top tip of the nose is blurred, and this super wide aperture creates a really nice separation. But if you try to photograph something that is flat, longer, or has edges, or even a person when the eyes are not clearly visible, it will be very hard to get the sharpness where you want it. And in my opinion, this creates a really too blurry and too shallow look. Sometimes even using a Sony camera with incredible eye tracking, real-time eye tracking, the lens will think it's focusing on the eye, but actually will be focusing on the end of the eyelash, not the actual iris. You might not be getting the consistent results you expect due to the aperture being so wide. The bokeh has got a lot of character at f2.8 and f1.4, but it is just non-descriptive wide open at f1.2. It's just a blur to me. Using this lens at f1.4, f2 and f4 or smaller aperture makes it a much more versatile tool and not just one very blurry trick pony. And it will also increase your success rate by a lot. I'm not saying that it is not very good at f1.2, it is, but aperture this wide is very limiting at what you can do with it. Autofocusing in video is really good, even wide open, smooth, without any hunting, and when combined with the right camera, very reliable. It is a lens that can surely deliver that elusive cinematic look easily. There is a problem with this lens when filming at 100 or 120 frames per second wide open f1.2 on a7 III or possibly other a7 cameras. As you can probably tell, there is a lot of flickering happening. There's some electronic issue between the lens and the camera. Not a big problem. As soon as you change the frame rate to anything slower than 100, 120 or close the aperture, I'm closing it now from f1.2 slightly to f1.4, the flickering goes away completely and it's not a problem. But it's something to bear in mind if you shoot at 100 and 120 frames per second a lot and you want to shoot this wide open on a7 cameras. There's some chromatic aberration wide open, but flaring is almost non-existent. The contrast and colors are superb, and it really feels like a G Master lens on my Sony camera. Or if you are a Panasonic user, this will certainly feel like most of the high-end Lumix lenses as well. The 35mm focal length is really great to get that portrait focal length, but with some room for your photos or videos to breathe if you are shooting in tighter spaces or want something slightly wider than the standard 50mm. Great for pretty much any type of photography without feeling too wide or without wide angle distortion when you get close to your subject. But there's an issue of its size and weight. Yes, it's built like a tank and it feels like it. It weighs just over a kilogram and it is large, 136mm long without the hood, and with an 82mm filter thread, it is also quite bulky. 11 aperture blades and a minimum focusing distance of 30 centimeters. Standard auto manual focus switch, focus hold button that can be programmed to a different function via the camera, and manual aperturing that can be declicked with a switch. What's really missing here is the aperture lock button, like on the newer 85mm 1.4 or the 105 macro. Although the aperture ring is fairly firm to turn, it is very easy to turn it by accident. I like controlling the aperture manually on the lens when shooting, but I had to keep checking what setting I was on constantly, as it was just too easy to turn by just holding the camera and the lens in my hands. There is no optical stabilization built in, and the lens features the dust and splash proof sealing and water and oil repellent coating on the front glass element. It is certainly not a lens to shoot handheld weddings or events with it all day long. You'd feel that you have it. It makes my Sony a7 III look very small, and after shooting with it continuously for just over an hour, my back was killing me and I had really sore fingers from just supporting it while taking photos. But it is an amazing lens that I still like a lot. It's not for everyone, for sure. It's a classic Sigma shape and size and weight. And if you don't do run and gun type of photography, then the size and the weight will never be an issue here. You get a lot for the money. Outstanding image quality, f1.2 aperture, substantial weight and size, all for just £1,449 here in UK or $1,499 in US. Yes, it's not a cheap lens, and with this price it is in G Master lens price category, but there is no f1.2 G Master lenses or any other f1.2 full frame lenses for Sony-E mount or L-Mount. This is a beast of a lens and certainly an investment if you are after this focal length, very high quality, and a lens that can deliver that extra shallow depth of field when and if you need it. Conclusion, this is a pro lens for a pro, no doubt. One that can deliver the result on par with the best out there. Yes, it's not cheap, but a lens of this caliber is always worth investing in, as it won't lose its value if you look after it. If you look after it well, and you should when you spend so much money on a lens like this. This is a lens that is, after all, f1.2, super wide aperture, and the focal length versatile enough for most of day-to-day photography and videography usage. There is a lot of photographers who need fast aperture lenses because they often only work in low light conditions. Theoretically, this is a perfect tool for it. You open your aperture to f1.2 and let more light in, reducing the need to lower your shutter speed or cranking the ISO up. But at f1.2, it is very hard to get the focusing right and hard to achieve usable photos constantly. Yes, they will be brighter, but that's about it. In my opinion, this super wide aperture is not the answer to low light shooting conditions, but a tool to achieve specific shallow depth of field look for a limited number of applications, portrait being probably a primary one. I love it, and definitely would recommend it to anyone serious about their image quality and anyone who just wants that super shallow depth of field. But remember, it's not an answer to the lack of light when shooting with it, but a tool that creates a very unique look due to the very wide aperture. And this is it from me. If you like this video, then please give me the thumbs up. Support this channel by using any of my affiliate links below, including my t-shirt shop, my new t-shirt shop. And if you like to see more photography and video related content, then please consider subscribing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. We are seriously fucking rock and rolling here. Art lens. and I look very green on that screen. No surprise that 11 aperture. There is a lot of breath. It's not shallow. It's actually got quite depth to it. It's quite intellectual, this one. It's not that shallow. And we are done.